What is civil service? It's something I think Americans don't think about, something we don't know a lot about, and it's also something we take for granted. Civil service is what is one of the things that makes America what it is. It is the millions and millions of people who work for the government to make sure that Americans get what they need, whether it's justice in a court of law because they've faced discrimination, or whether it's clean air and water regulations that get followed. At every single level of our government, there are people who work to make our lives better, this country stronger, and they do it for a not considerable sum of money. I mean, these civil servants don't get paid a lot of money. That's compensated for by the fact that they have job security and they have health care. But even more important, civil servants are nonpartisan, truly. Yes, each administration, Democratic, Republican, gets to decide who runs certain agencies, gets to put people in positions of power in certain divisions or sections. However, for the most part, the vast majority of civil servants are people who have been in those jobs in some cases, for their entire careers. They have dedicated their lives to serve this country. One thing the Trump regime has done since day one of its current incarnation is destroy the civil service in America. Why? Well, because again, it is there to serve us, not the rich and powerful, not those who want us not to have any rights, but us. And that is not an acceptable alternative to the would-be authoritarian, to the fascists. They do not want us to have what we have come to take for granted. And they do not want to continue to have a vast civil service doing the bidding of anybody but themselves. We've known since the beginning that at every agency, in large part because of Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, agencies have been gutted, agencies have been dismantled, agencies have been hobbled. People have been forced to retire prematurely. People's careers have been ended. People who dreamed of working in the Department of Justice, for example, have had their lives upended and that dream denied them. Because this regime does not believe in the rule of law. It does not believe in public education. It does not believe in environmental protection. It does not believe in protecting our children, especially, but our older people, any of us, truly, from curable, very communicable diseases. It does not believe in an America that exists for all of us. And of course, a big part of the problem is the person 74 million people decided to put back into power doesn't understand what service is at all. He has never served anyone or anything but himself. And that is why we are here. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome. It is so good to see you tonight for this episode of Mary Trump Live. I don't know if I would be entirely truthful if I said it's good to be back in America, but it's very good to be back here. I've missed you. I've missed doing this. I would prefer to be doing it from Florence, Italy, but all good things must come to an end. And quite frankly, it's not so bad being back in New York. And it's cooler here than it was there, which is kind of wild. Anyway, yes, it has been something of a harsh return. As you know, it was a very tough weekend, and that seems to be the norm with weekends these days. And today we got some more quite alarming news. The corrupt, illegitimate supermajority Supreme Court just hours ago said that released a very big decision, which, when I first heard that, I thought that's a little unusual because the last day of the term already happened, right? But again, I've been away, so maybe I missed something. But today, the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court decided in its infinite wisdom to undo a ruling that gives Donald the authority to fire en masse federal workers. And I said the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court because that's sort of become my default. That's the assumption I always make. This decision, however, was 8-1. Only Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson dissented. And again, this decision by the Supreme Court overrode orders from a lower court that froze the cuts temporarily, giving Donald the go-ahead to continue with massive layoffs of federal workers, of civil servants, of the people who make this country what it is. And along with firing them, what is happening is he is destroying, in yet another context, institutional memory that it will take us perhaps generations to get back. Also, this is not a this is not an insignificant thing. It gives him even more power than the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court has already given him. I do not know what in God's name Justice Sotomayor and Justice Kagan were thinking. The court said the cuts made by DOJ, carried out in an executive order issued by Donald and an administration director for agencies to make large-scale job reductions, are legal. Okay. At least 75,000 federal workers have been fired. They have chosen to take deferred resignation programs because the alternative was to stay and have their lives made miserable by Donald's thugs. They've been placed on leave. They've been demoted. There are no official numbers yet on how many people are jobless, but the number is expected to rise. And what I do know, because I have sources, is that in one section of the Civil Rights Division, 70% of the workforce was fired, reassigned, or essentially forced out because conditions at DOJ were made intolerable. This, of course, comes on the heels of Donald and his fellow fascists in the Republican Party passing a budget that will take away Medicaid from millions of people as inflation is expected to rise in the coming months, thanks to his tariffs, which, once again, we're going to have to talk about. On top of all of this, it comes after a horrific and foreseeable flood in Texas. Basically devastated a region of the state, and again, was not just foreseeable, but preventable. Why was it not prevented, you might ask? Well, because major vacancies continue to exist at the National Weather Service. And that agency was responsible for alerting people in advance of this horrific tragedy. I don't think we can pretend anymore that one of the agendas of the Trump regime, and indeed of Donald Trump himself, is to destroy the middle class. Jobs are being eliminated. And again, civil service jobs do not pay very well. I mean, they pay well, don't get me wrong. These are good jobs. These are solid middle class jobs. But they also come with excellent healthcare benefits. So we have potentially hundreds of thousands of people without an income and without those benefits upon which they and their families have come to rely. Donald and the Republicans are essentially kicking millions of people off of Medicaid. They're going to take healthcare away from millions more. Costs of everything are on the rise, which will lead to higher inflation. The very thing so many people claim to care so much about that they could not possibly bring themselves to vote for Kamala Harris. We have vacancies throughout agencies in the government, vitally important positions that remain unfilled. Why? Because Donald and his sycophants and enablers don't care if we're healthy or well enough off to survive. It is true. They do not want a strong middle class. They want us poor and sick and tired and confused. And in far too many cases, they just want us dead. So, while all of this is going on and federal workers are getting fired across agencies, people in the administration are getting caught up in the cover-up. And this has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. When it comes to Donald's Department of Justice, and that's what it needs to be called, because let's be honest, the Department of Justice in its current incarnation exists solely to protect Donald Trump and keep him from accountability as if he hadn't already been. Right? But when it comes to Donald and his DOJ, things are just getting shadier and shadier and shadier. They randomly announced, and again, I don't know why. I don't think anybody had brought it up. I know a month ago, Musk had said publicly that Donald was on Jeffrey Epstein's list, as if most of us didn't realize that that was probably the case. It hasn't been an issue, but randomly it was announced that there was no Epstein client list. So Donald's staff released security footage to back up this claim, but internet sleuths, I think they're also known as hackers, quickly realized that the video had been altered. There's a significant portion of the MAGA base that believes Jeffrey Epstein was murdered by the powerful people he could implicate in his crimes. And I have to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any stretch of the imagination, but it wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't. I mean, the circumstances surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's death are quite frankly absurd. Like, it's something that never, ever, ever should have happened. Now, whether it just is something that mistakes were made, possibly. But there are a lot of people who potentially could have been implicated in the horrors Jeffrey Epstein perpetrated. So, Donald's staff knows that they would face serious blowback from those supporters when they wrapped up the case. So they released almost 11 hours of security footage from the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City that were taken on the last night of Epstein's life. The camera view gives a partial glimpse of a common area in the facility, and Epstein's cell door is just out of frame to the right. But viewers say that there seems to be a glitch in the video as the timer turns from 11:58 to 12 p.m., seemingly skipping a minute ahead. And that, my friends, is what is known as a tell. Like, that's sloppy. So Pam Bondi, one of the least trustworthy people on the planet, and tragically for us, Attorney General of the United States of America, explained the missing footage this way. Quote, what we learned from the Bureau of Prisons is every night they redo that video. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing, unquote. Is that how time works now? Is that? I mean, time works so that every day we're missing a minute here and there, and it's a consistently missing minute. I'm not a physicist, but I'm pretty sure that that is not how time works. Or indeed, videos with time steps. So it's becoming more and more clear, if we don't exactly know the precise contours of how or why, that Donald is covering something up after having spent months talking about his plan to release some bombshell Epstein documents. I mean, I have a theory about that. I don't necessarily think it's important that I share it. I'm guessing that he believed that there are a lot of people who would be implicated, whom he considers political enemies, perhaps, and he could make fodder out of that. I don't know. Or perhaps the most likely explanation is that he could imply those things while pretending that he was going to release information that, if he actually did release it, might, I don't know, hypothetically, be damning of him. And he never had any intention of releasing it at all. So this is just another instance in which it is becoming increasingly clear that Donald cares nothing about the rule of law, but perhaps more importantly in this instance, has surrounded himself with people, including those who have sworn an oath to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States of America and uphold the rule of law. They don't care either. They care about their power, and they care about protecting his power, because without him, they have nothing. So I think at this point, it's safe to say that we're not just slowly sliding into authoritarianism, or that Donald is becoming more and more authoritarian. It's just blatant. He is an authoritarian, and we are way more than halfway down that slippery slope. So it should not surprise us, especially in the wake of what has been going on in Los Angeles, since peaceful protests were treated as an excuse to federalize the California National Guard and to militarize a very blue city, that Donald has a new plan to destroy our country, which includes a hostile takeover of Washington, DC. He is literally has said that he is considering overtaking Washington, DC, which is an independent, it's sadly not a state. Democrats, get on that, please. Seriously. But it is independent. It is not part of the federal government. So let's take Donald at his own words that he spoke during a cabinet presser today.
We can run DC. I mean, we're looking at DC. We don't want crime in DC. We want the city to run well. Susie Wiles is working very closely with the mayor, and they're doing all right. I mean, in the sense that we would run it so good, it would be run so proper, we'd get the best person to run it. The crime would be down to a minimal, would be much less. And we're thinking about doing it, to be honest with you. We want a capital that's run flawlessly.
I know this is not the biggest issue here, but figure out the difference between an adverb and an adjective, please. Like, seriously. Like, when you say Democrat as using it as an adjective, you just sound like an idiot. Well, you are, I guess. But still, stop it. And typically adverbs have ly at the end. That's how you can tell they're adverbs. Not always, but often. So today's comments were not the first one he's made about DC. Over the weekend, Donald said he might step in if the DC Council does not approve a deal for a new Washington Commanders football stadium at a federally owned federally owned RFK site, meaning that he would overtake or replace, I should say, local leaders with federal ones. Back in February of this year on Air Force One, Donald echoed the same exact sentiments. This threat has been a very long time coming. And if we think about how DC has been treated during both administrations, we have reasons to be alarmed, and they certainly do. So take a look.
I think that we should govern District of Columbia. It's so important, the DC situation. I think that we should run it strong, run it with law and order, make it absolutely flawlessly beautiful. And I think we should take over Washington, D.C., make it safe. People are getting killed, people are being hurt. You have a great police department there, but somehow they're not utilized properly. We should govern D.C. I think the federal government should take over the governance of D.C. and run it really, really properly. And I like the mayor. I get along great with the mayor. But they're not doing the job. Too much crime, too much graffiti, too many tents on the lawns of his magnificent lawns of his tents.
Too much graffiti. Donald Trump likes to pretend he's a New Yorker. He's not. We reject him utterly. You'd think he'd know what graffiti is and that it's kind of okay. Anyway, it's not just D.C. that Donald is threatening to take over. He's floated the idea of other cities, United States cities too. One particularly frightening threat was that the government could take over the aforementioned New York City. My home, not his home anymore. And the idea is both laughable and terrifying. Donald took a chance once again to call Democratic nominee Zoran Mamdani a communist because he doesn't know what communism is. And then, in a very communistic way, threatened a hostile takeover of my city. Take a look at what he had to say.
Number one, you have a communist running, and you shouldn't vote for him. He's a disaster. He's leading. He's got the Democrat nomination because that shows you where the Democrats have gone. This is a man who's not very capable, in my opinion, other than he's got a good line of bullshit, and he's convinced them to go with him. Now, if a communist gets elected to run New York, it can never be the same, but we have tremendous power at the White House to run places when we have to.
Well, you know what? Regardless of whom we elect, and it's certainly not going to be a Republican, we're going to be just fine. One of the reasons we're going to be just fine, Donald, is because you don't live here anymore. So your threats, again, while terrifying, because no president of the United States has ever uttered words like that. And that should be enough to disqualify him. But we know that Donald Trump is a joke. We know he doesn't belong here. And we know that we will never, ever, ever give in to him, which is one of the reasons he so desperately wants an excuse to, quote unquote, take us over. Because we all know why Donald is threatening these cities, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., New York City. There are two reasons. One, he knows we hate him. And he doesn't like that because he's a baby. Two, he is scared of the people who lead these cities, or will lead, because clearly in the case of Eric Adams, currently the corrupt mayor of New York City, Donald has no reason to be afraid because Eric Adams is afraid of Donald. But Zoran Mamdani, why do I keep mispronouncing his name? I apologize. Mamdani, he's not afraid of Donald Trump at all. And Donald is going to do everything he can to quash the resistance against him and his regime, especially in a place like New York City, because we understand who this depraved human being is. We knew it all along. And the mistake we made as New Yorkers was in not understanding that the rest of the country didn't see it the way we did, because it has been so obvious to us since the 1970s that Donald Trump is a joke. He's a pathetic loser. He is a corrupt, bankrupt. I could keep going. I'm going to leave it there. Oh, and also, how dare you? I mean, you guys know. I don't mind swearing. I don't. Because seriously, fuck these people. But if you're president of the United States, watch your fucking mouth. Is that what it means to be presidential now? Is that what people on the right are telling themselves? Just because Donald Trump is swearing now, hey, that's what we want for our kids. Fucking hypocrites. You family of family values. See, I had to stop myself again. But you know what I mean. So, the point is, we know who this person is. We've always known. And if other people don't see that now, that is because they are willfully blind and they are willing to lie to themselves. And we need to be asking ourselves why. So while Donald is threatening Democratic cities that aren't afraid of him, the balance of power in some swing states is on the line. So there's a race in Wisconsin that's heating up, and it could determine a major balance of power in a crucial swing state. We've got State Representative Jenna Jacobson, who's officially launched her campaign for Wisconsin's 17th Senate district, challenging longtime Republican Senator Howard Marklein. If Jacobson can manage to flip the seat, this could be absolutely huge for Democrats, because Republicans currently hold an 18 to 15 seat majority in the Wisconsin State Senate. At least 3 of those Republican-held seats, including District 17, are considered vulnerable, and flipping just 1 seat obviously would narrow the Republican lead to 17-16. A UW-Madison political science professor, Howard Schwaber, outlined the importance of this race, saying, quote, "That means a single Republican defection is enough to stop something going forward. And obviously, if the Democrats pick up 2 seats, they have a majority," unquote. Like, that's how close all of this is right now. Everywhere, it feels like. So Wisconsin is a state that's still actively debating reproductive rights, trans rights, and more. And these races gain all the more importance because of the fundamental importance of the issues that are still being resolved. Because we're not talking about rights around the edges. We are talking about fundamental constitutional rights of the human beings who live in that state. This is why, and this is a mistake Democrats have made for far too long, and they need to stop making it, local politics are so important. You know that phrase, think globally, act locally, right? Think about it. Like, there's really, as individual human beings, there is not much we can do to influence what happens in the world. Like, as one person, like, what can we really do to combat climate change, right? Or world hunger? I'm not saying there's nothing, right? But there is so much more of an impact we can have in our own communities. Now, again, what we do at our local communities may not have a massive impact on a global scale. However, we could change things in our home, in our hometowns, if we start recycling consistently and responsibly. If we, encourage other people to run for elections, right? Because by failing to consider the importance of what happens locally, we fail to have the kind of power we need to build at the state level and at the federal level. We put ourselves at a massive disadvantage. Plus, of course, and maybe most importantly of all, we cede enormous amounts of territory to a party that is hostile to the ways in which our children are educated, to our rights as human beings, and to our very democracy. We change that by changing what happens in our hometowns. How is that possible? Well, again, we get majorities on school boards. We get majorities on local city councils. We get majorities in state governments. We have more power to elect Democratic representatives to the House of Representatives. We have a better chance of doing better in statewide elections to get Democratic senators, the supermajority they need to change the future of this country. That's how it works. We get a Supreme Court that values human life, that values our futures, and, believe it or not, that values our founding document, the Constitution of the United States of America. So, as I said, being back in America, it's complicated. Very, very happy to be back with you. And I'm very happy because we're all going to breathe now. Remember that? I remember breathing. I assume you've been doing it since I've been gone. But have you been taking cleansing yoga breath? I don't know. Should have been. That's right. In through the nose, out through the mouth. It is time. It is time. I've missed these. I've had my own versions of them. I was in Florence, so of course I've had my own versions of them. However, there's nothing like sharing an emotional support moment with you guys. So let's go. So Petty Officer Scott Ruskin, a rescue swimmer from Coast Guard Air Station Corpus Christi, is being called a hero after helping save 165 people from Camp Mystic during the floods that occurred over the July 4th weekend. What should have been a quick 1-hour flight turned into a 10-hour mission because of the horrific weather. When Ruskin, who was only 26, landed, he was met by about 20 kids. He led them to safety in small groups and even stayed behind to make room on the helicopter for more evacuees. And most astonishing of all, I think, this was his first rescue mission. But because he's actually a hero, he downplays it by saying he was just doing his job. Here he is in his own words during an interview on CNN.
They launched us from Coast Guard Air Station Corpus Christi at about 7 a.m. In the morning on the 4th of July. Kind of battled some weather with the crew on the way in. We were obviously flying through the storm that was causing all the rain. It took us about 4 different attempts to try to make our way into Kerrville. And finally, on the 4th attempt, with the help of the Air National Guard, the Army guys, we were able to kind of make our way into Mystic. We heard there was about 200 campers there, and they were in need of airlift. There was no other way to get them out. Bridges were gone, roadways were gone, and the water was coming up too high for boat rescue. So the only option was airlift. And we decided the best course of action would probably be to leave me there. At the time, there was no triage coordinator, and just because, it was kind of hectic. A lot of people were needed on other assets and other airframes. We just decided that, hey, we can fit a couple extra kids if we leave me on scene. That aircrew with Ian, Blair, and Seth kind of went to a more dangerous location to try to, airlift a few more people out of a tighter landing zone. And they were able to airlift about 15 children out of there. And they left me on scene at Camp Mystic. And there, I kind of helped facilitate some of the organization and the triage, just comforting these kids and getting 165 of them out on the Army Black Hawk helicopters. Any fear and stuff I had, I kind of just pushed it aside for a little bit because, I'm a rescue professional. This is kind of what the Coast Guard rescue swimmers are known for, just kind of getting the job done. And any of the rescuers on the scene were doing the exact same thing as me. They were all super professional, some of the best men and women I've probably worked with.
And that's how it's done. And for me, that is a reminder of what it means to be the kind of person we want in this country. Somebody who puts other people first. Somebody who understands that being a decent, kind, generous human being who cares about others comes with risks. And, if we're lucky, there are risks that we're willing to take. So, thank you, Petty Officer Scott Ruskin, and the many, many, many people who have been involved at, again, great personal risk to themselves, great emotional and psychological risk to themselves, in the effort to find survivors and, much worse, to find those who didn't make it and return them to their families. All right. It is time for your questions, comments, etc. And I know, I want to say really quickly, I know what happened in Texas was unspeakable. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to think about, especially in the context of this grotesque government that essentially created the conditions in which this horrific catastrophe was allowed to happen. Made a video about it. I have many, many thoughts about what happened and what led to what happened and what we need to do about it. So keep an eye out. One of the videos is up already. There will be another one coming soon. All right. Lori, new member, welcome. It is great to have you here. Mary, thank you so very much. That's awesome. And that is a welcome back fee. Oh, well, thank you. Rose Blue, thank you so very much for that. Texas here. Thank you to decent people all over, but the Republicans can shove their thoughts and prayers up their asses. Yeah, arses. Sorry, arses. Yes, they can. And again, I think Texas needs to think long and hard about why they continue to elect people who make this kind of horrific catastrophe inevitable. And that's just the way it is. Like, why does your governor, why does Greg Abbott keep getting a pass? I don't understand. Lori, thank you so very much, Lori. Comment, welcome back, Mary. We all missed you. Well, thank you. And again, I missed you guys too. So it is really good to be back. Pam, thank you, Pam. That's great. Comment, love you, Mary. Thank you for continuing to keep me sane and informed. Okay, sane. I'm glad. Not sure how that's happening, but I'm glad. Informed, yeah, we do our level best, and I promise you it is not always easy. Ghostlayer 59 in the house. Thank you as always. Comment, Mary, withdraw fee. Question, Mary, what's your take on the New America Party? I'm side-eyeing Musk as usual, but if Cuban's throwing in behind it, oh, could this actually kneecap the GOP? Mark Cuban is? I'm not aware of that. That would make me really question several things. But since I'm not aware of that, and so I don't want to speak about it until I know more. What I will say is that any party that Musk started would be terrible for Republicans. And, even though Donald says third parties are really good for me, I don't know if they're good for Republicans, but they're good for me. Guess what? It'd be terrible for him too. Because the people who support Musk, by and large, are people who support Donald. And if forced to choose, they would most likely go with Musk. They're not voting for a Democrat anyway. So, the whole thing is suspect anyway, simply because what the hell is Elon Musk doing, having anything to do with starting parties in our country? But, if it hurts Donald and the Republicans, I guess, go for it. Mrs. Natnat, thank you so very, very much. Comment, happy Disability Pride Month, Mary. Yes. Oh, I forgot. That is right. It is Disability Awareness Month. So we will be talking more about that for sure. I have many things to say, especially in the context of what's been happening at the DOJ. So, Kay, thank you so very much. That's great. This October, question, if he's on that list, would MAGA even care? In other words, if Donald is on the Jeffrey Epstein client list, would MAGA care? The answer is no. They wouldn't care at all. And what's worse, what is much, much worse in my opinion, neither would the Attorney General of the United States of America. Because if you remember, she was Attorney General of Florida. Pam Bondi is also partially responsible for the fact that Jeffrey Epstein got away with his horrific, unspeakable crimes against young women and girls for as long as he did. So she clearly doesn't care. Which means she's as much of a monster. Perhaps more of one, because she could have done something. Kaz, thank you so much, Kaz. Comment, so glad my dad, a World War II vet and ex-POW, then postal worker, passed away before 2016. This is worse than the first regime. Glad you're back, Mary. Well, thank you for that. And yes, it is so much worse. And I weep for any soldier who fought and sacrificed so much in World War II to make sure that democracy survived the Nazi regime, because that's us now. And it is just hard to watch. Donna, wow, Donna, thank you as always. That's fantastic and very kind of you. Question, is Donald eliminating government jobs replaced with AI technology, and that those people would then need jobs to live take place in the jobs of the poor deported people? Is he that insane? Just a thought. He's on another universe. Yes, he's as insane as you could possibly imagine. I say this often, and I think it's worth repeating. When it comes to him, there's no worst. There's no point at which he stops being bad. It only gets worse and worse than you could possibly imagine. So, I don't know specifically the content of what he has planned or what they have planned, but it is malicious and it is malign, and it is, we all should be guarding against it. That is for sure. Thank you, Jane. That's great. Comment, got here late, fee. Glad to see you back. Well, thank you for giving us a fee for being late. It's okay to be late sometimes. Torin, thank you very, very much. Well, thank you for confirming this. Comment, I am a physicist. Time doesn't disappear. That's what I thought. So weird. Well, maybe Jeffrey Epstein had special powers. He certainly thought he did. Yeah, they just think anybody will believe anything. Suki56 in the house. Thank you so much as always for that, Suki56. Comment, greetings and salutations, Mary and everyone. Anyone that goes before Congress and has to tell the truth, they should have to take a shot of truth serum before they answer questions. Just saying. Yeah, well, there was a time in the not too distant past when the threat of perjuring oneself was enough to get you to tell the truth. That is no longer the case. So yes, if there were such a thing as truth serum, I'm not entirely sure sodium pentothal is the thing. Is that sodium pentothal? Is that a drug that you give people to execute them? I apologize, I don't remember. But anyway, I don't necessarily think there is such a thing. I maybe get people, I don't know. But you would like to think that under such circumstances, people would voluntarily tell the truth, but there's no reason for us to have any confidence in that anymore. Motley Pizer, question, why does he always have a creep standing next to him? Well, because they're all creeps. I think that's the simplest. They're all creeps. There is not one non-creep whom he could choose to stand next to him. at least voluntarily. Yeah. Passive of Antigua. Comment. We got spam email from SSA, the Social Security Administration. They were bragging about how great the bill was and how nothing would be cut at all. Straight lies from SSA. Yeah, that is not normal, people. It is not normal for agencies to be that partisan and mendacious. So that does not bode well. Sweet lady, comment. While people were living the Texas flood tragedy, he was dancing at the 4th of July celebration. No comments. Yeah, he was hanging out at his golf club, eating ice cream cones, probably, and just being his despicable, vile, unbothered self. Lizzie Beth, thank you as always. Question. Can we ask affected people what they'll do on such and such a date when such and such kicks in? They've got plans, right? What are they? Well, the problem is a lot of these people don't know, and the Republicans know that what they're doing is despicable, anti-American, and cruel, so they don't want people to know. There's a very obvious reason that most actually, of the provisions in this big abominable bill don't kick in until after the 2026 midterms. So people aren't going to know until it happens to them, and Republicans have made sure that most of it isn't going to happen until after an election they desperately need to win. So there you go. That's why it's Democrats' job. It's our job to make sure people know. We've got to figure out how to get that message out there. Elaine, super sticker. Thank you so much, Elaine. Awesome. Nancy is a new member. Thank you, Nancy, and welcome. Jennifer, another super sticker. Thank you, Jennifer. Fantastic. Susan, thank you as always. That's great. Really appreciate it. Sunflower, thank you very much for that. Sorry, this happened in 87. No sirens, warnings. What the hell? Yeah. Yeah, well, that's why I think it's fair. It is completely fair to say that what happened in Texas was completely avoidable, and the fact that it was not avoided can be laid at the feet of very specific people who knew that defunding the National Weather Service and NOAA would lead to such outcomes. No two ways about it. This was, and you can call that whatever you want. You can call it manslaughter or murder or what have you, but it was not necessary. And I do not know how I would manage if I were somebody in a position many people in Texas are in right now. Regina, thank you so much as always. Comment, welcome back. Thank you. And Agatha Mystery. Which one? Super sticker. Thank you so much, Agatha. Fabulous. Okay, you guys rock. And again, kind of ease me back into being back in America. And I mean, to be honest with you, Italy has its own flipping problems. They have a fascist in power right now. But I don't know, it just feels different. Not making excuses for them, of course, but just I think it's good to get a little distance sometimes, and a little perspective. So jumping back in with both feet was made easier because I got to be here with you tonight. So thank you so much for tuning in for my awesome guest hosts. They were fantastic, and I hope you guys enjoyed them, appreciated them, and gave them lots of positive feedback. I don't plan to be away anytime soon, but that will happen on occasion. So it's good. It's good to know that there are people out there to fill in Thank you, everybody watching on YouTube, everybody streaming on Twitter and my Substack, The Good in Us, and everybody listening to the podcast. We very much appreciate that. To all of our super stickers, people giving us gifts, and our new members, it helps us more than we can say. I promise you. We're trying to grow, and sometimes, because of the Twitter algorithm and because of the velocity of the news and because not Twitter, sorry, YouTube algorithm, which does not favor, this will shock you to know, does not always favor left-leaning outlets. It's hard to break through. And we just reached another really important milestone. We're over 425,000 subscribers, but we really, really, really need to get to 500,000. To those of you who subscribe already, thank you so much. To those who don't, it's easy. It doesn't cost anything. Just click that subscribe button. And then there's a bell icon. If you click on that, you can, decide how often you want to receive alerts and stuff like that. Another free way to support us, and that's extraordinarily helpful, is to like and share our videos. We have videos dropping every single day, in addition to the live. So watch them, share them with other people, like them, comment on them. All of that helps us overcome the sort of structural disadvantages we face because of the YouTube algorithm and the way it's designed. It just, I think there's a tipping point in terms of number of subscribers, and we really, really, really want to get. I don't know precisely what it is, but 500,000 sounds good. 1 million sounds better, but one thing at a time. Let's get to 500,000. We can do it. Thanks as always to our awesome moderators who do such a phenomenal job voluntarily, right? Which is awesome. And of course, to my extraordinary team who really held down the fort while I was traveling, which, was the last week and a half. But honestly, I feel like I've been traveling for about 20 years now. That's probably not true, but it kind of feels like that. So they have just been doing such amazing work, especially the biggest thing is just dealing with the insanity of the news cycle and just managing all of it. But also I think we're dealing with 4 different time zones sometimes. So it is a lot. So they've been incredible. I hope you guys are sending them lots of love and support because they deserve it. And I certainly could not do this without them. Not even close. So thanks, guys, as always. And somebody just suggested I go play the guitar, and I think I should do that. So I am back. I'm actually, this will shock you, getting on a plane tomorrow, but I'm not going far. So I will be back for Mary Trump Live, and we will have videos dropping all day tomorrow. So be here, because I will be here. And that is it. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern for Mary Trump Live. In the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind. Bye.